Hi, I'm Kaylin, and welcome back to BCA Today, BCA's student-run TV show. Tune in every week to get the latest on what's happening around the world, in America, locally, and right here at BCA. Without further ado, let's get started. Happy St. Patrick's Day. On Sunday, Bergenfield was the site of Bergen County's 44th St. Patrick's Day Parade. It was a day of community fun and togetherness as a hallmark of Bergen County living. Speaking of community, BCA will be hosting our annual semifinal on April 10th. Make sure to buy your tickets this upcoming week if you are in 9th or 10th grade. This past Friday, the class of 2026 had their senior fashion show. Students got to walk the runway as models in various categories. The categories were gala, cultural, streetwear, student designer, and day and night. Prizes were won, and $3,600 were raised to help offset the cost of prom and graduation. Students expressed creativity and individuality through their outfits. Now to Sam for an interview with the Regeneron finalists.
A week ago, Regeneron Pharmaceuticals, Inc. hosted the Regeneron Science Talent Search at the National Building Museum in Washington, D.C., where over $1.8 million were awarded among the 40 finalists. The competition is known worldwide for honoring innovative and pioneering research that has potential to make a lasting impact on the future of STEM. Here with us today is BCA senior Claire Jiang, who won 7th place in the competition along with $70,000. Hi Claire, first of all, thank you so much for joining us today and congratulations on winning 7th. So first, let's talk about the Regeneron competition. How did you first hear about it and what made you want to compete in it?
Yeah, so I actually first heard about the Regeneron competition through just the pipeline. I feel like in middle school, you hear about all these high school students that are participating in the competition, and I was just really excited to be part of it. And this has just been a lifelong goal of mine.
And for this competition, you developed a cellular model of juvenile idiopathic arthritis. Just tell us what that means and what made you want to go in this direction for your research in this competition.
Yeah, so juvenile idiopathic arthritis is actually a lot more prevalent than we think. It's the most common form of arthritis in children. And one of the problems with that is that there aren't targeted treatments for children living with JIA. And JIA can be very painful. And the purpose of my research is to develop a novel model so that researchers can have easier access to researching into JIA and hopefully in the future develop novel treatments.
And how much time did you spend developing your research?
I actually first started becoming interested in JIA research in middle school, and then as I came to BCA really gave me the platform and opportunity to really delve into JIA research. And I've just been working on this for the past 4 years around.
And were there any problems that you encountered along the way of developing this research?
I think like even though research is really great at BCA, we are in a high school, right? And so I had to really follow the high school schedule. I had to sacrifice my lunches, sometimes a lot of free periods, and even on the weekends, I worked really hard on this project. Also, another problem I faced was that juvenile idiopathic arthritis is actually really underrepresented in the research, and there aren't a lot of labs that work on JIA. So a lot of my research had to be, traversing novel scientific literature and creating my own path.
And many past finalists of this competition have gone on to do incredible things. Some of their honors include Nobel Prizes, National Media of Science. What was it like to be among people who really have excelled in their industry? And did you get to interact with any of them while you were in Washington, D.C.?
So I will say, first, I was really shocked to get top 40, and I was even more shocked to get top 10. And so being amongst, these people that are just so great was really amazing, and I really cherished every single moment that I had that week. I met Senator Annie Kim, I met Dr. Ted Hoff, and I met Dr. Ed Thorpe, and these people are really famous for, Ted Hoff is famous for creating the microprocessor, and Dr. Ed Thorpe is famous for creating, counting cards. And actually, I got to talk to Dr. Ed Thorpe at my poster, and that was just a really amazing moment.
Now, let's go back to the moment that you placed 7th. What was going through your mind, and what were the emotions like?
I mean, yeah, like I mentioned before, I didn't expect to make top 40, much less top 10, and so I was just really shocked. If you guys look at the live stream, feel free to search up Regeneron, look at the live stream. I just had my mouth open, and then I walked over, I took my photo, and as I walked away, I just continued to process that I actually won top 10, and I was among some of the greatest scientists and greatest peers that I'll ever meet.
And do you have any plans for continuing to develop this kind of research or maybe even tap into new areas of STEM in the future?
If given the opportunity, I definitely want to continue this research. You know, there aren't many labs working on juvenile idiopathic arthritis. I still want to push forward and pioneer this field. But I'm also not opposed to exploring new things in college. I'm really interested in, you know, other aspects of biology, like molecular biology, for instance, and that'll be really fun to explore.
And finally, do you have any words of advice for those who are watching that may be wanting to compete in this in the future?
Yeah, I was actually asked this question during the highlights interview that we had at Regeneron, and I actually have two pieces of advice. One of them is pretty generic. You want to focus on something that you're genuinely interested in, right? Like, you're going to spend hours, years, and, you know, basically, like, even sometimes your lifetime focusing on a research project that you have to be interested in. So genuinely just have an investment in it. And number two, create community and find good mentors. Mentors honestly have shaped my life. The mentors here at BCA, Dr. Smith, Dr. Sabio, Miss Leonardi, Miss Waldron, Dr. Reeves, Miss Baffo, all of them have contributed significantly to my journey, and without them, I would not be able to be here. But also create community, right? Like, science is never done alone. Science is a body of literature. And so interact with other peers, ask questions, but, you know, obviously be part of a community. And that's like one of the most important things you develop working in science.
Thank you so much once again, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Now back to Kaylin for some national news.
Hundreds of flights departing or arriving in the Midwest have been canceled or significantly delayed due to huge blizzards over the past few days. The partial government shutdown back in mid-February was already contributing to jammed-up airports, but these new weather conditions pose as a greater threat to air travel, with winds reaching up to 50 miles per hour as the storms are blown east. Officials estimate that the wait times and cancellations could get worse in the coming days. In lighter news, astronomers have discovered what may be a new type of planet. An exoplanet named L9859d was first discovered in 2019, but recent exploration with high-powered telescopes reveal some unusual characteristics. The planet, which has rocky terrain and radius larger than that of Earth, has oceans and magma and an atmosphere consisting of sulfur. The planet does not fit into the gas dwarf or water world scenarios that scientists have grown accustomed to classifying when working with planets of this size. They say that while the planet is likely not suitable for life, it could be subject to more research. We'll now go back to Samantha for an interview with students returning from the Costa Rica global trip.
During the final week of February 24th, students traveled to Monteverde, Costa Rica. The trip, which was set up through a partnership with the Council on International Educational Exchange, gave students the opportunity to explore the causes and effects of climate change through documentation, labs, and research. Here to discuss more about the trip and their experience are Nina Narvaez and Lucy Wang. Thank you both so much for joining us today. First, when did you two hear about this trip and what made you guys want to go on it?
I first heard about this trip through the BCA Global Studies website, and I was first initially drawn to this trip because it was in Costa Rica, and I've always wanted to go to Costa Rica or another country in Central America. However, after reading more about what this trip is about, I was really drawn to the environmental science and sustainability aspect about this trip. At BCA, I've taken many environmental science electives, and I was very interested in this subject. And I also wanted to learn more about sustainability since I want to implement more sustainable practices to have a better future.
What did you guys specifically research while on this trip, and did your findings surprise you at all?
So on the 5th and 6th day, we were able to conduct our research projects. And so on the couple days leading up to our research, we went on a lot of hikes and had a lot of interactive activities that gave us many opportunities to kind of think about what we wanted to research. And so specifically for the projects, we were split into smaller groups, so around like 3 people. And my group specifically, we researched leafcutter ants and how they responded to like obstacles in their paths. And specifically like the leafcutter ants, I think they're ants native to Costa Rica, and they cut leaves from trees, and they create many meticulous paths to their colony. And so we implemented some obstacles and essentially saw how they responded to it. And a pretty interesting finding is that some of them actually dropped their leaves, and but actually after a while they were able to create their own path, and we thought that was pretty interesting.
Now, talk about the difference between learning about sustainability and biodiversity through personal firsthand experiences versus learning about these type of concepts in a classroom.
I think that learning about sustainability and biodiversity in the classroom is very different, because in the classroom you don't really get to see all the sustainable practices and biodiversity firsthand, and you only really see it on a screen. And I think specifically for sustainability in Costa Rica, it was really interesting to see all of the different sustainable practices and how they work exactly. We were able to see the different systems that they use and implement, and talk to the farmers there to see how it impacts their community and how they're able to have more resources because of their sustainability. And for the biodiversity aspect, on our hikes, we were able to be more observant about what we were looking at, and they were teaching us to look at the different leaves of the trees and where the different animals are, and how the different animals and organisms interact with each other in the forest, which is an experience I would never have gotten inside the classroom.
And during this trip, you guys got to interact with farmers, scientists, and other members of the community. So what was that like, and what did you guys learn from them?
Yeah, I think it was a really great experience. A commonality between all of them was that they were all just so passionate and knowledgeable about sustainability in Costa Rica and the biodiversity, especially in the cloud forest. That was something that was just really refreshing to kind of see and learn from. And specifically with the professors, during our hikes where they were kind of guiding us, and also during small in-class activities, it was their kind of passion for the subject that made all of these activities super fun and also very interactive, and I think I learned a lot from them. So.
Is there a specific moment from this trip or a place that you guys visited that really stood out to you?
My favorite place that we visited was on the first few days, where we went to this local hotel. And at this hotel, it's also a farm, and they also implement many sustainable practices into their farm. So they reuse normal everyday items like old tires, and they also reduce food waste by feeding the leftover food to the chickens. But what I found really interesting was how they were able to reuse water from the rainfall or from other things around the hotel, which they were able to do so through using gravity to draw the water through their systems that use plants to filter the water to make it clean.
Finally, do you guys have any advice for students who are watching that may want to go on this trip or other future global studies trips?
Yeah, so I think for Costa Rica specifically, definitely bring a lot of bug lotion. Bug spray isn't good for the environment. And for just any global studies trip, like Nina was kind of saying before, really just being observant. So whether you're going on a hike in the forest or on a tour, things like that, just always being observant. I think you'll definitely learn a lot through that.
Thank you guys so much for joining us. Now we'll go back to Kaylin for international news.
In Germany, scientists have developed a new biodegradable battery that could replace traditional lithium-ion batteries used in electronics, cars, and renewable energy storage. Unlike standard batteries, which can take hundreds of years to decompose and often release toxic chemicals, these new batteries are made from organic materials, including cellulose and natural polymers, which naturally break down without harming the environment. Early tests show the batteries can retain up to 90% of their capacity over 200 charge cycles, making them eco-friendly and practical. Researchers say this innovation could dramatically reduce electronic waste, which currently amounts to over 50 million tons globally each year, and could play a major role in creating a more sustainable future for consumer electronics and clean energy technology. That's all for the news we have today. I'm Kaylin.
And I'm Samantha. Thank you so much for joining us here on BCA Today, and we'll see you next week.